So Donald Trump is sworn in as the 45th President of the United States. And then 1 hour later, he delivers a punch in the gut to the middle class. Today's action is all the proof that we need to know whose side the Trump administration is on. So what did he do? Sounds pretty serious. According to the media, Trump raised mortgage insurance rates on 1 million low-income households by around $500 a year, which reverses a reduction by the Obama administration. So before we get into this, let's give a little background. So if you're going to buy a home, then you give a down payment. And if your down payment is less than 20% of the value of that home, then you are required to purchase mortgage insurance. This protects the lenders if you default. And from their point of view, if you don't give 20% or more, then you are not as invested in that home and you are more of a risk. So mortgage insurance has two kinds of premiums. The first is the upfront premium, one time only when you get out the mortgage. And the other is the annual premium, which you pay every year. So let's give an example. $200,000 home. You have $10,000 as a down payment. That's 5%. So you have to take out $190,000. So you are required to get mortgage insurance. The rates that you have to pay, which are the same as they've been since January of 2015, the upfront rate is 1.75%. That's $3,350. The annual rate is 0.8%, which for the first year is $1,520. Now, Obama's reduction in these rates do not affect the upfront. They only affect the annual. So the annual rate has gone down from 0.8 down to 0.55. That's 25 basis points, which is 0.25%. So instead of paying $1,500 in your first year, you're paying $1,045 in your first year. So this is a significant savings. This is $475 a year, at least for the first year, and around $40 a month. So Trump has taken this away from people. He just took that out of their pockets. So in my internet bubble, the criticism from the press has been unanimous and harsh. So first, to the obvious, Democrats. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer says, in one of his first acts as president, President Trump made it harder for Americans to afford a mortgage. What a terrible thing to do to homeowners. Actions speak louder than words. And then our vice president runner-up, Senator Tim Kaine. Trump's first executive order, raising mortgage payments for low and middle income homeowners. Not very populist. Some more. Exactly how does raising the cost of buying a home help average people? And then, on day one, the president has turned his back on middle-class families. This decision effectively takes $500 out of the pocketbooks of families that were planning to buy a home in 2017. This is not the way to build a strong economy. I mean, this sounds like a bad television script, purposefully bad writing. Now, these two criticisms I like because of the imagery. So this one shows Trump with, victory, I rule, these guys, who cares about these guys, I did the right thing, picture, causing all these people such suffering. And then, when you've lost Mr. Rogers. There's a lot more to this story. First, this reduction was announced on January 9th, 2017, 11 days before Obama left office. 11 days. 8-year term, 11 days before he leaves office, he announced this reduction. And the reduction was not scheduled to take effect until the week after President Trump became president. The announcement was made with no warning and no projection justifying the change, justifying the reduction. And as I understand it, both of these things are unusual with a change of this magnitude. And the Trump administration is exclusively responsible for implementing this reduction. So you would think that the Obama administration would want to warn them and would consult them. And if they were good actors with good intentions, they would. But they didn't. Now, a couple more criticisms which come across to me as misleading, not harsh, but misleading. This is Bloomberg, which in its subheading says the loan program is popular among first-time home buyers, which to me, when I first read this, came across to me as, wait a minute, did Trump lower the rate, or did he do something more to this popular program? More damage than is implied. And then, now that we know this timeline, I find this by far the most misleading coverage. Time magazine, how Donald Trump just raised many mortgage bills. Trump, who claimed a populist mantle in his first speech as a president, signed the executive order less than an hour after leaving the inaugural stage. It reverses an Obama-era policy. An Obama-era policy. 8-year term. He announced it 11 days before he left office, and it never took effect. But it's an Obama-era policy? That's just incredibly misleading. Incredibly misleading. You would think that it was implemented long ago and took effect long ago. And he didn't raise anything because it was never lowered to begin with. And then the final piece of evidence. On the day that this was announced, January 9th, 2017, these two things were said. Number one, the Trump administration would be accused on day one of raising mortgage costs for average Americans if it reverses the FHA move. Trump's career has been real estate. It would seem out of character for him to be aggressively negative on real estate in his first week in office. And Obama's Housing and Urban Development Secretary, Julian Castro, said, "I have no reason to believe that this will be scaled back. The premium cut offers a good benefit to hardworking American families out there at a time when interest rates might well continue to go up." And you know what this makes me think of? You have been working at a job for 8 years. And you've been working the same wage, working as hard as you can. No raise. You ask your boss periodically, appropriately, respectfully, not too much. You ask him for a raise. He says no, no raise. You keep working hard. And then finally, on Monday morning, he comes to you and he says, "You know what? I'm going to give you your raise. Starting 2 weeks from now, you got your raise. Congratulations." What relief, what exhilaration that must make you feel. And then 2 days later, Wednesday morning, you discover that your boss gave his notice months ago, and his final day is Friday, a week before your raise goes into effect. So you go to him and you say, "What's the new guy like? What's my new boss going to be like? Is he going to give me this raise? What do I, can I expect that this raise is going to come through?" And he tells you that this new guy, the new boss, is hard to get along with. He's difficult. He's a penny pincher. you're going to have a hard time. But he tells you that I'm going to put a note on his desk and I'm going to tell him just how important this raise is and that he really needs to give it to you. If I were that person, I would be upset with my new boss. But I would be furious at my old boss. He had 8 years to give me a raise. 8 years. And then he finally gives me this valuable thing. But it has to go through my new boss, who he knows is not going to deliver. This was nothing more than a setup. Obama set Trump up, and he used the American people as pawns. Pretending to care about Americans, pretending to care about them by giving them this fake present, which had to be delivered through this hostile actor, when he knew that it would not be delivered. If he really cared, he would have given this benefit or some similar benefit long ago. I'm going to look at Chuck Schumer's words one more time. In one of his first acts as president, President Trump made it harder for Americans to afford a mortgage. What a terrible thing to do to homeowners. Actions speak louder than words. And in this situation, in this example, Obama's actions speak way louder than Trump's. It is not Trump's responsibility to keep the promises that Obama makes on his way out the door. It is Obama's responsibility to not promise what is not promisable. There are so many things for progressives to criticize Trump about. This isn't one of them. So who are we fighting? Who are we fighting? So I want to close with 2 videos from Jimmy Dore, because he says it perfectly. First is the video in response to a protest that happened at the Democratic National Headquarters, where they put up this really embarrassing sign.
What's the point of a party, a lefty party that takes 2 wars and turns them into 7? What's the point of a lefty party that takes a banking system, props up the bankers, and screws over homeowners? What's the point of that party? What's the point of that party when it comes to stand up for unions? You turn your back, you go silent, and you don't, you cowards. What's the point of having a lefty party when they get control of government? They give us a fucking right-wing healthcare plan anyway. This is good. This is what we need to do. And I know people are going to go, oh, you're so divisive. We're supposed to come together and we're supposed to be united against Trump. We get united against corporatism. That's what we're united against. We're united against corruption and corporatism. That's what we're united against. And getting money out of politics. And get out of bed with fucking Wall Street, military industrial complex, and big pharma. Then it doesn't matter if there's an R or a D in front of your name. We just saw what the D's did to, what the Democrats did to poor sick people. They fucked them over. Ted Cruz didn't do it. John McCain didn't do it. It was Patty Murray. It was Cory Booker. So this is great. This is great. This is what we need. We need Democrats afraid for the first time ever. Democrats need to be afraid of their base.
And this next one is with Jimmy Dore and reacting to Trump taking the United States out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, something that is good that he did.
The moment provides an opportunity, Ron, for Democrats to find common ground with the new president, which could bolster the legitimacy in their arguments when they disagree with him on other issues. So just being anti-Trump delegitimizes you in the eyes of his supporters, just like when all the Republicans were anti-Obama and anything he proposed, even if it was a Republican idea, they were just against it because they were against Obama. Remember how that delegitimized them in our eyes? Well, that same thing delegitimizes, especially when he's doing something right. So that's what we've said. We've mapped it out here on the show before. The way to oppose Trump is to agree with him when he's right and oppose him when he's wrong. Otherwise, it delegitimizes your own opposition. I just don't believe. Here's from Pete D'Alessandro. It's a quote from my friend of the show, Pete D'Alessandro, who ran Bernie's campaign in Iowa. I just don't believe in opposing someone to oppose them if they're doing something that you don't disagree with, D'Alessandro said. Then it becomes a pretty cynical operation. So there you go.
We don't need to unite against Trump. We need to unite against corruption and corporatism. The way to oppose Trump is to agree with him when he is right and to fight him when he is wrong. Anything else delegitimizes you in the eyes of his supporters. That's all of the isms. Racism, you're against someone because they're black. Sexism, you're against someone because they're a woman. Parenting, you don't criticize a child because they're mean. You criticize the mean thing that they did. Putting people in these ridiculous boxes, criticizing their being, just pushes people apart. Criticizing what they do without personalizing it, that's how you get things done. We need to criticize people when they do things wrong. We need to fight people when they do things wrong. When Democrats do things wrong, we need to fight them. When Trump does something wrong, we need to fight him. When Trump does something right, we need to stand with him. What this all boils down to with me is that if we can't win with the truth, then we don't deserve to win.